where does the impulse for the sound come from? Stand up again. Actually, no. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. And put your hands on your chin, on your cheeks, right? And do a little for me. Now, make sure your jaw, your lips, and your tongue are not part of this equation, right? So there's no there's no tightening the lips, there's no gripping of the jaw, and there's certainly no tension in the tongue, right? So everything is very, very relaxed underneath the upper mandible here. Right? That's a much different sound, right? Because any kind of tension here will kill resonance, right? So where's the impulse for that sound coming from? Can you feel it without me?
You know the diaphragm below.
Yeah. What's moving when you do that? Right? So put your hand on your belly. I'm just going to take a sip here. I put more hands down here. Lower than below the belly button, right? The pooch here. Mudra, what do they call it in Buddhism? Buddha belly? No, I don't know. So, you think it long. You feel that? Let's go. You feel that? It comes from here. Sound is born here, where the abdominal wall is, where the diaphragm is. And that's the responsibility of the diaphragm in your sound. Now I'm going to say something that you might be controversial or not, but this is what I found for myself. We don't support with the diaphragm. So when somebody says support, use your diaphragm to support, this is not what we do. It's not entirely untrue, but it's not the whole truth, and it's kind of a detrimental way to think about it. The diaphragm is responsible for the management of breath. It drops when you need to breathe, it moves when you have to make sound. It helps you engage the sound, right? That energy comes from here. But it doesn't necessarily help you support your sound. It helps you move the breath, right? Support is up here, where the intercostals are. Okay? And the abdominal wall right here. Not the diaphragm, right? The diaphragm sits like this, not like that, right? When you go here and you think, oh, I feel my diaphragm. No, you're feeling your rectus abdominis, right? Your six-pack. 4-pack, 3-pack, no judgment, you know. The diaphragm sits like this and it cuts you in half. And it raises and it lowers. And it helps you move the breath, right? And when it moves and it helps you engage the tone, that's what you're feeling. You're also feeling this part, but down here, right? Put your hands sort of low in your hips right here above the hip bone, right? And give a little cough. They have a name, I don't know what they are. Anybody? The what?
Abdominis traversus, I believe.
There you go, abdominis traversus. It's the little muscles that get a little tight, right, when you cough or clear your throat. Right? They will also engage when you make a sound. So go. Right? Feel that? So again, it's important to be aware of and to have a sense of where the sound comes from, because it doesn't come from here. Right? This is kind of the effect. It's on the way. It's the path of the sound, and the cords, the muscles of the cords respond to this impulse. But this is not where the sound comes from, and you have to be really aware of this, because a lot of us have this unconscious belief that this is where sound comes from and this is where we engage and where we support. And so there's a lot of tension in the bottom of the throat because we think, oh, here's my voice box and everything happens here. You have no real, not entirely true, but you have no real conscious access to this, right? It's like you're blinking or you're breathing or your blood flow or even you're walking, yeah? You could control it if you wanted to, but you're better off if you just stay out of the way, right? Because we're not as subtle as our bodies, right? So nothing really happens here that you need to concern yourself with in the beginning, right? The energy for singing comes from below, all right? So that's sort of what we call the impulse of the sound. So let's just do a couple of things. Put your hands down there. Be aware of that movement. Don't forget the surprise. We're going to build on what you learned now, so try and incorporate as much as you can, because I know you're focusing on things, right? So when you need the breath, you think surprise, you feel a little drop in this area, and then when you engage your tone, you feel a little engagement, a little contraction, a little healthy tension. It's not even tension, it's more like tonicity. Yeah, it's like a trampoline or one of those balls, exercise balls that you sit on, right? There's a certain tension, but it's flexible tension, right? And this is the danger with thinking supporting the diaphragm, that we go, right? And then suddenly it's like you're so rigid, right? These muscles, we're not so subtle, and so we do too much, we make them rigid. The throat locks, like when you go, right? And you can't sing there. So it's dangerous to think about support here, because that's what happens. So, we're going to surprise, and then we're going to go, and you just make that sound go right through your nose. Nose jaw, surprise. Nose tongue, surprise. Fuzzy lips. It should tickle. Tongue up against your palate. Surprise. And you should like that as you get a little higher, and I'll talk about what higher really is. There's more energy there. And if you're feeling that it's high, or that you're feeling constriction in the throat, then it means you're not engaging enough in the body. And so you just step into it a little bit more. Like when you get a little more intense, like when you really mean it, like when you raise your voice and you say, I told you so, that kind of thing. Okay? You need to be engaged in it. Here we go. Hang one hand from your chin. And use the weight of your hand to relax the chin. Open, close, it doesn't matter. In fact, open and sing, NG as in sing. In fact, let's use the word hum. Hum, and you're going to go straight to the NG. So one hand in your belly, one hand on the chin, and you're going to hum. Again. Louder, easier, right? Yeah. There's still a sense sometimes, and this is something that we have to work at, and that you have to be aware of wanting the tongue to work. And so as it gets higher, right, your brain says, oh no, this is getting high and I have to do something, and your tongue gets in the way, and it gets a little tight. And you have to learn to recognize the sound and the feeling, right? And so instead of getting and that's what I hear, right? And suddenly the resonance is gone, and it's back here where your tongue is, right? And for yourself, you can recognize the shift in the sound, the fact that suddenly it's not as intense here as it was a moment ago, there's not as much sound, and now you're a little tight in the throat, right? Instead of, this is all dead down here.
So, what's your tongue doing?
Well, my tongue is in the NG position, but it's really soft.
Just soft.
Uh-huh.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's just lying flat.
Yeah, it's not lying flat. The back of the tongue, when you go hung, feel what your tongue does when you go hung. Right? First of all, the tip, I saw you, and I'll get back to you, okay? The tip of the tongue is forward by the bottom teeth. It's always there. it's always there, unless you're doing a consonant, unless you're going t, or even ch, right? There are certain consonants where you need your tip of the tongue. Otherwise, it's always, like, write these down in your books. It's always by the bottom teeth, down here. The middle of the tongue and the back of the tongue do all kinds of things, gymnastics, but the tip is always forward unless you need it for an N, or an L, or a D, or a S, or no, S is also, or a D. Yeah, there are some sounds where you need, but otherwise, tongue is relaxed, it's always relaxed, right? So that's what it's doing. You had a question?
For me, it's usually my jaw.
Yeah, its jaw is very tight. It's the jaw and the tongue are the strongest muscles in the body. And before you can release it, you have to become aware of the difference between it's like tense, relaxed. Tense, relax. You have to know the difference. Same with the jaw, right? Tense, relax. Let's do this. Grip your jaw, not too hard. Just clench your teeth, and then let it go. Clench your teeth, and let it go. I've never done this, I'm just trying to. Clench your teeth, and let it go. Right? You have to know that difference, right? At some point, you'll be able to, right? But I've worked on this. You know, you go to the dentist and he wants to get a good bite, right? He puts that little blue film between your teeth and he shakes your jaw and he says, let go, let go. And you're like, I'm trying to let go, right? We're all there, right? We have, right? You have to learn that feeling of letting go. And once you learn it, you just go there. It's like, let go. Okay. Let go. Okay. It's like, my arm feels relaxed, doesn't it? It looks relaxed, but it's not. Right? Let go. And you just go there. You just let it go. But it's something that you have to do. It's meditative work. It's focused, quiet, internal work. You turn in and you feel. In singing is not about listening to yourself. It's about feeling yourself from the inside. What's going on inside? There's inside here. There's inside here. There is certainly a lot of inside here. Especially when it comes to diction, articulation, resonance, right? What's going on? Why can't I let go of my jaw? Where am I holding that tension? And this is what speech therapists help you with, right? Tongue and jaw. A really great exercise to do is, well, I wasn't ready to do this with you, but if you find a little piece of gauze or a little hanky, not paper because it gets stuck, you grab your tongue and you pull it right out of your mouth. And then you vocalize like that. And you'll find how quickly your tongue wants to pull in and fight you. The tongue has nothing to do with the making of a sound. If you're not saying words, your tongue has nothing to do. There's no responsibility there. And so if you're trying to go, and your tongue is fighting you, it's engaged in the making of the tone. And by the time you've made your tone, right, it's like the tongue has nothing to do with the making of the tone. Right? The tongue has to do with articulating language. Yeah?
What about the back of the throat? I don't know whether it's the vocal cords or whatever, but sometimes I find that everything starts to sort of bubble and sizzle away.
Bubble and sizzle. Bubble and sizzle?
It cracks or it
Crackles?
bubbling.
Well,
and some, is that just more technical?
Well, I'm not really I think I know what you mean by bubble and sizzle, but crackling or dirtiness well, first of all, the back of the throat is not the vocal cords. The vocal cords are sitting quite low at the base of the throat. Yeah? They're like your lips, maybe half the size, maybe even smaller. Yeah? Sitting like this. If you look at it from above, they look like that, right? And they work like your lips. Doing this. That's basically what they do. It doesn't look like that, but that's basically what they do. They vibrate, they come together like an oboe, like a double reed, like an oboe or a bassoon. Right? You're looking at the edge, right? Yeah. And so they sit here, and not the air, but the pressure from the air makes them vibrate, not the air. Like we're not just making air rush through the cords. It's the pressure. That idea of suspending, you know, suspending the surprise when you're ready to talk but you can't. That pressure, that pressure makes them vibrate. As they vibrate, breath moves out. One little bubble at a time. Every time they come apart and they go back in. If I could do this fast enough, it would sound like a pitch, right? You lose a bubble of air, but it's not air rushing through the cords. This is why when the voice is really breathy, you run into trouble and it feels so tight. Because the cords don't like air rushing through them. They like to have a nice tight seal between them. It's like playing a trumpet, right? Or a horn, right? Any brass players here? Yeah? If your lips are not, right, tight enough, you can make a sound, right? I'm not a player, but, right? The only way you get that is if your lip, otherwise it's just, it's air. And then the cords, they squeeze because they want to come together and then you feel that tension. So, the back of the throat is more the feeling of the surprise, the sneeze, or the yawn. Right? Now, again, what did you call it? Bubble and boil? Sizzle. That may just be that you've got a little phlegm back there, or...
Is it possible it's just tension that needs?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's possible that it's tension. Yeah. How are we doing so far? Is this interesting? Are you getting something out of this? Okay, I want to make sure that I'm doing something that's useful for you and not just what I think you should know, which is really the same that everybody should know. So.